Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just to make sure, can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Because you are all muted at the moment. So just to make sure, good. So thank you for joining today's OMC Menopause Café. For those who don't know me, I am Dr. Vera Martins. I am OMC's naturopath. I'm also a herbal practitioner and a lifestyle medicine practitioner. And the focus of today's webinar is to provide an overview of weight management in menopause through the lenses of naturopathy. We know that weight is a very typical concern in menopause. So we thought of providing an overview of how naturopathic tools can support you in this journey. Just a brief sort of overview of today's flow. I think one aspect I would like to highlight from the beginning is that today's webinar, the focus will be on trying to sort of go away from that perspective of how fad diets, how calorie counting, calorie restriction can support weight loss. So it's sort of trying to move away from this concept, which was very popular in the 90s, we know, but thankfully the research today has been showing how this type of approaches can be counterproductive, and we're going to look into it a little bit more in a short while. And so the main focus is then to actually trying to understand how having a more holistic approach to weight management, trying to understand what are the different factors that can contribute to it. So sort of adopting a more health conscious approach rather than just weight loss oriented is very important. And then we will make sure we have enough and plenty of time towards the end for questions. For those who don't know the OMC, it was founded in 2021 by Dr. Kai Kavusi, and is the UK's first CQC registered online menopause clinic. We have 4 experienced menopause doctors, 1 nurse, and a naturopath, myself, to provide an all-around support to our clients. So we'll start by looking at which factors may actually influence body weight, not just weight, but actually body shape, which becomes really important when we start reaching perimenopause and beyond. So all the factors that are here highlighted are important, but actually when we reach perimenopause, they become even more significant because the changes in hormones that we go through during that stage can impact in all of those. So we know that changes in hormones can affect our hunger hormones, so changing our appetite, and also the way that we eat, or probably we used to eat in our 20s and 30s, may not be appropriate anymore. So we may need to reframe our eating habits. And then gut health, stress, and sleep are factors that can significantly contribute to how our body behaves in terms of managing weight. And those are also impacted during menopause. So we're going to look at these different factors in a little bit more detail and try to understand how we can support them from a naturopathic point of view. And before we start, I just want to get here an overview of, this is sort of like the elephant in the room, I find it, because when we talk about weight loss, it's very common to think about, reducing calories, possibly skipping meals, and there are several fad diets, and they can be quite appealing in a way, because you may lose weight quite quickly in some cases. But what I hear and see quite regularly is that often they're not like a long-term solution. And so this is what we need to keep in mind. And why is that? Well, actually, if you restrict the calories, your calorie intake too much, you actually slow down your metabolism. So that has a negative effect, and particularly can impact how you can actually lose weight or reach like a healthy weight in the long run. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Then we know that a lot of these diets can lead to nutritional deficiencies and missing food groups completely. For instance, if you actually restrict fats, as an example, if you have very low levels of fat in your diet, you'll be affecting your hormones. So that can be counterproductive in terms of sugar balance and in terms of regulating your hunger hormones. And then when you look at fat diets in a little bit more detail, what we know is that the research so far is not really conclusive. So there's not enough scientific evidence to show that they are helpful, particularly in the long run. We know they don't provide long-term results, and the side effects can be a problem. For instance, keto diet is quite common and popular. We know that it can, in many cases, lead to constipation because you will be ingesting a reduced amount of fiber. And so constipation is really bad news for your hormones, for your gut health, and ultimately to reach a healthy weight. And then if you look at this from a really sort of holistic perspective, I think we can agree that, if you are in a quite restrictive and punishing sort of protocol, that will affect your motivation, it will affect how you interact socially, maybe going out for dinner with friends, your self-confidence, and then can ultimately make you live in a sort of, in a stress, sort of, in a stressful mindset and contribute to unhappiness. So I think this gives you sort of an overview how this type of dieting can be counterproductive and long-term doesn't provide a solution. So what do we think, or what do we know that works? And all the aspects, the factors that I'm going to discuss here today are factors that have been scientifically researched and with positive results. I think from what we know from research and also from my clinical experience is that we need really to start adopting a sensible approach to weight management, something that is realistic and can be done in a practical way. And tailoring it is also really important because it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach in weight management in general, but in weight management, it's really important because there are so many factors that can contribute to it. Here we have which I'll call the naturopathic protocols that are addressing these factors that we kind of see as the foundation for a healthy weight, which is blood sugar balance, gut health, stress management, and sleep. And so it'll be really important for you, to sort of ask yourself, try to understand from these different areas how much support you may need, which areas may need a little bit more support, and what would be the right combination for you, which could be completely different from what is the right protocol for a friend. And we start with blood sugar balance. Why is it important? What does it has to do with weight? So there is a really strong and quite obvious link, actually. First of all, with the perimenopause reaching, we start to have a higher predisposition to high blood sugar levels, and that leads to insulin resistance. So insulin resistance means more insulin in your bloodstream, and that's really bad news because insulin promotes fat storage. So that can actually be linked to this. We start to see more accumulation of weight around the waist area. So that's quite typical, and it can be linked to that. And we know that this poor blood sugar balance will also affect our hunger hormones. So we're more likely to feel, hungry, sugar cravings particularly. And we know that our food choices and eating pattern can also significantly impact on this blood sugar balance. So that's here, diet will be really important in terms of supporting this factor. And we'll look at it just in a short while. We also know that stress and sleep are very important. So it's all connected, as you can see. Chronic stress and sleep, they impact on cortisol, which impacts on blood sugar balance. So what can be done from a point of view of balancing blood sugar? So as I mentioned, diet would be the best way to support blood sugar balance. There are certain supplements and certain herbs that can help, but the foundation would be what you're eating and how you're eating. And here are just some simple practical tips that you can start straight away. So avoiding refined sugars and ultra-processed foods. These are the ones that can spike your blood sugar more quickly. And instead, making sure that you have meals that are high in healthy fats, good quality protein, and moderate in carbs, complex carbs. It's this protein and these healthy fats that are providing the sort of the right support in your body to make sure that the sugar is released slowly in the bloodstream. So protein and fats, it's really important. And on that note, and going back to dieting, actually, the Mediterranean diet, if you want to sort of focus on a particular type of diet, provides this approach. The research has been really extensive in this type of diet. It's one of the most nutritionally adequate with no known side effects. So that's a good way to start if you don't know where to go. And keeping in mind this concept of the healthy fats and protein with every meal is also important to not skip main meals and particularly prioritize breakfast as the most important meal of the day. Breakfast will actually, a breakfast that is high in protein and good fats will set the tone for the day, will make sure that these blood sugar levels are much more balanced throughout. And you are also more likely to make the right choices of food because you will be less likely to have cravings throughout the day. So this is really important. And I would say, if anything, if you don't know where to start, just focus on protein, good fats, and having breakfast if it's something you're not doing already. Then we move to gut health as another important factor. So we know that the individuals that are overweight have a less diversity of good bacteria in the gut. And interestingly, we also know that in menopause specifically, there are changes in these gut bacteria, which are associated. So the profile of bacteria in menopause starts to be associated more with that of a profile that promotes central adiposity, so accumulation of fat around the waist area, a slower metabolism, insulin resistance, and weight gain. So this, as you can see, it's actually linked to what I just said about blood sugar, that we are more predisposed to blood sugar at this high blood sugar levels at this life stage as well. So it's very likely that gut health is also impacting on how you can actually balance your blood sugar levels. So what we can do in terms of gut health, where can we start? So again, we go back to the Mediterranean diet. Also here, Mediterranean diet has a really important role. In terms of in this context, how is it relevant for gut health? It's rich in fiber, rich in polyphenols, and anti-inflammatory. These are all aspects that feed the good bacteria in our gut and promote healthy bowel movements as well, which is really relevant. Then probiotic and prebiotic foods. We are all quite sort of keen on taking probiotics as supplements these days, but actually you no need necessarily to take a probiotic unless it's been prescribed for a particular reason by a health practitioner. Most of the time we can get good quality probiotics from foods as well as prebiotics. So prebiotics are foods that feed the good bacteria in the gut. And to be fair, almost everything that contains fiber will be helpful, but things like bananas, artichokes, leeks, garlic, onion, they are all prebiotic foods. The probiotics are the foods that contain live bacteria, so kefir, sauerkraut, and you can have those regularly on your diet. This is sort of the most natural and sensible way to include probiotics into your diet. Chewing your food very well, this can be relevant for some people that are used to eat quite quickly, so digestion starts in the mouth, don't forget that. And then eating the rainbow, so a variety of vegetables and fruits, spices and herbs. It's one of the best ways to feed the good bacteria in your gut as well. Again, going back to what I mentioned with blood sugar, this will impact on many aspects. So that's it's here again is ultra processed foods. Our bodies don't know what to do with those foods and actually can massively impact your gut microbiota, but also your metabolism. So it's going away to foods that you don't know what they are, you know, going back to the roots. What is this food? Try to understand if a food has a long list of ingredients, you don't recognize those ingredients, it's quite likely going to have a negative effect on your body. So prioritize all foods, foods that you know where they come from, and trying to cook from scratch at home, it will be really important. Artificial sweeteners are really something to keep an eye on. Usually when you have products that say no added sugar, they will have quite likely artificial sweeteners. And artificial sweeteners have been linked to several potential side effects, including reducing the diversity of good bacteria in the gut. So something to keep an eye on. And also be aware of whether you're developing some food sensitivities, maybe something new. And this is quite typical in menopause as well. As our gut profile changes, some women notice that they are becoming sensitive to some foods. So this is something you may want to address or speak to a health practitioner to help you to work with that. So the other factor that can impact on weight is stress. And so this is a really big one because sometimes women feel like they have tried everything. You know, they're having a really clean diet, they are doing everything they can, exercise, etc. But the weight is still not shifting, particularly that weight around the waist area. And that can be quite often linked to stress or poorly managed stress. Stress is an interesting one because so we know that stress increases the stress hormone cortisol. So going back to the cortisol connection, cortisol is the stress hormone that leads to accumulation of fat in the waist area. And we know that in menopause, our resilience to stress starts to change. So one of the main symptoms can actually be that women just feel like that, you know, they are not able to deal with things the same way they used to. Certain things that seem small, that used to bother you, now they are, you know, they become significant. So it's sort of this sense of I'm not coping with things the same way. So it can start very early in your perimenopause journey and can be a significant contributor to how your body is then, you know, managing fat storage, even if we don't realize. And also no, stress will just kind of be linked to with another fact, all sorts of factors. You'll be less motivated. You just may be less likely to do, for instance, the right choices of food and lifestyle, including probably exercising, going out. And then stress can be also linked to poor sleep, which we will talk about in a little while, which is also really important. So from a stress point of view, what can we do? What are the naturopathic tools that are out there that we can rely on? And, you know, I'm not going to lie, the foundation, the starting point to manage stress is definitely self-care. There are supplements that are very helpful, but self-care is what's going to give you that solid foundation and long-term results. So try to start listening to your body, tune with your body, and try to be grateful for what's doing for you. That's particularly important during the perimenopause transition because the body is talking to you in a different way, maybe a bit louder, maybe with different words that he was doing earlier in your 20s and 30s. So it's time to listen and just, you know, make the changes that you are able to do in working with your body. It's that time to probably embrace that process of transformation, and any lifestyle changes, dietary changes that may be needed. It's the time to actually listen. And so when it comes to self-care, the stress management tools that I usually recommend and invite women to start maybe reading about, exploring. It's not one size fits all. So what works for you may not work for a friend, but I often recommend to look at mindfulness, and there are various apps that are really helpful, and I'm happy to share some resources if you like. Two interesting ones that are really well researched, actually, it's forest bathing, which just means, forest bathing means going out in nature, exposing yourself to daylight, engaging with the senses, and it's that connection with nature that can really restore the nervous system. So this is a really nice, easy one to do, free, and has additional health benefits as well, including, better sleep, and improving your immunity as well. And then tapping, it's a technique that is linked to how you actually engage your brain with areas in your body, so like your meridians in your body. So by tapping, you actually activate areas in the brain that engage with the parasympathetic nervous system, so the rest and digest, the calming side of your nervous system. You can read more about tapping as well. I'll provide some resources later, but tapping is a really helpful one and can be practiced anywhere by anyone. So something really useful for you to have in your stress management toolkit, I would say. Herbs and supplements. The ones I would say my go-to are definitely magnesium, which is nature's tranquilizer, and adaptogens, so herbs that help the body to improve resilience to stress. And ashwagandha is usually my favorite one, because of how safe it is. Most people can take it, apart from people that have an overactive thyroid, so hyperthyroidism. Otherwise, is usually safe, and is really well researched. And then the last factor we're going to touch on is sleep. And I already mentioned sleep sometimes can also, be caused by like situations of stress or ongoing chronic stress. So there is a direct link there. But also, going through menopause will impact on sleep. It is also one of the symptoms that can be experienced first. Also, if you have been someone with a predisposition to poor sleep, it's quite likely that perimenopause can make it worse. So something to keep an eye on, and just also look at sleep as a really like an important foundation, not just for weight management, but for everything else. Because if you're not sleeping well, it will impact on your energy levels, on your brain function, on your self-confidence, and can create sort of what we call these cluster symptoms, where it becomes very difficult to address, the other symptoms that are associated. So looking at sleep as the foundation is also an important step forward. And this link with weight is also quite clear. There's several studies showing how poor sleep or not sleeping enough hours, and here we're looking to at least 6 to 7 hours of restorative sleep, how that can impact weight gain and also increase your waist. And again, it's linked to cortisol, because when you don't have restful sleep, you are quite likely to have high levels of cortisol or peaks of cortisol during the night. And also we know that sleep and that healthy circadian rhythm is very important to regulate hunger hormones. So not sleeping during the night or having poor sleep can make you have cravings during the day. So there is a very direct connection there. So what can we do? So everything that we actually mentioned in terms of stress management would apply here as well. But we can also look at some tools that can be a little bit more focused on sleep. in particular. The first one will be light therapy. So light therapy basically means exposing yourself to daylight in the morning and avoiding blue light from screen devices, so your phone, your laptop, at nighttime. What this is doing is actually helping to regulate your sleep hormones, like melatonin, and your stress hormones. So it's helping you to get into that healthy circadian rhythm that allows for a healthy balance of stress and sleep hormones. Here, the concept is almost like, a good night's sleep starts in the morning. And so that's what, as a starting point, we will promote good night's sleep, this exposure to light in the morning. What I mentioned a while ago about forest bathing can actually be a good one, because you're not just supporting, your stress levels, but you're also promoting restful sleep. So going out, walking outdoors in a park, it's one of the best things you can do. Then this is an obvious one, but I think many times it's not carefully sort of assessed and monitored, which is caffeine intake. Here, I think it would have to be obviously tailored to the individual, but as a general rule, I would suggest to avoid taking caffeine first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. So before taking your breakfast, or even if you're skipping breakfast, having caffeine there as your first sort of boost of the day, it will be counterproductive. And also having caffeine after 1 p.m. around, I would say don't have any caffeine after 1 or 2 p.m. Herbs and supplements that can specifically help. Magnesium, again, it's very important to reduce levels of stress, but also to support sleep specifically. And there is plenty of research on magnesium. So magnesium will be one of my top suggestions to take at bedtime. Ashwagandha will help, particularly if you take it in the morning to support your stress levels. We touched on it already, but more specifically, you could consider lemon balm as a herb to support sleep at bedtime. Can take it as a tea or as an extract, capsules. There are different forms. An interesting one that sometimes people may not realize is exercise, especially if you're trying to lose weight. You may be actually sort of going too hard on your exercise routine, or maybe not harder than you used to. But same with diet, exercise is something we may want to reframe at this life stage, because our bodies now have different needs. And one thing that if you over-exercise or have like a sort of a strenuous exercise a program, what it's doing is picking your cortisol levels. So at this life stage, your body may not deal with it the same way that you used to. So if you're doing that late in the night, actually, that cortisol that is being produced may be impacting on how you're sleeping. So you may want to rethink that and maybe try to have a more intense exercise routine earlier in the day, and then prioritize more gentle forms of exercise, such as yoga or Pilates, closer to bedtime. And yoga nidra, it's a really nice actually technique as well, a practice which relies on sort of a body scan that is very helpful if it's practiced before bedtime. So something you may want to consider as well and do a little bit of research. And just so before we finished on, so that we talked about the different factors that can impact and how they are all connected. I would just like to have a word on time-restricted eating, because going back to the fat diets I talked about and the potential side effects, if we actually want to rely on a protocol that can be helpful, in addition or in combination to everything we talked here today, would be time-restricted eating. Because in my view, this is a sensible and realistic way of fasting, with not necessarily prioritizing any calorie restriction. The point of time-restricted eating is that you actually continue to eat your 3 main meals a day in a balanced manner, but you restrict the time. So you would be eating, for instance, between just 10 or 12 hours, meaning that you would fast for the remaining. And the research shows that TRE, so short for time-restricted eating, in combination with a healthy diet and exercise can lead to weight loss. And more importantly, weight loss that is sustainable. So this is maybe something that you want to consider and ideally work with a health practitioner that can guide you. But yeah, I think there's always quite a lot of questions about fasting, and there are loads of different fastings. But from all that is available, this is what I believe it's the most sensible and safe way to do it. So how do we put all of this together? I think the idea I wanted to share with you, and hopefully I managed to do it, is that achieving and maintaining, so really important, maintaining a healthy weight has to be more than just be focused on a weight loss sort of program. It has to be something that takes into account, a really healthy balance of diet and lifestyle. So being sort of health conscious. So that is that health conscious sort of approach that can promote a healthy weight loss. And the secret for a long-term success is getting all these different aspects that we discussed here today in sync. And this is a list of the things, the factors that can be important, that can help with weight, and going back to how this has and should be tailored. So again, going back to this concept of what works for you may not work for someone else. So as an example, I have quite a few clients that come to me with weight issues, have been doing everything they can from a diet point of view, but actually that may be the stress. For this client is probably the stress that is playing a role. So that's the area that we need to focus and prioritize while supporting everything else alongside. Sometimes I have also clients that have like what we consider healthy diet, but that diet is healthy, but is actually still lacking on macro and particularly micronutrients that, not the macronutrients provide the foundation, but the micronutrients, it's sort of the glue that brings everything together. So it's kind of looking at things in detail and understanding what is for you the best combination of these different factors and how we can put everything together to create a personalized, plan, protocol that works for you, for your specific needs. So at the OMC, we actually created recently what we call our OMC Naturopathy Weight Management and Gut Health Program. And this is exactly to actually promote and support this concept where you have a 12-week time period to work towards, your goal would be to reset your weight, but also focus quite a lot on your gut health. So be a step-by-step tailored plan set in a quite practical and realistic way. The bespoke treatment plan includes usually the foods and staple shifts that can make a difference. So as I said, it will be based on things that are quite practical and very easy to implement. Also, herbal remedies and supplements are part of the plan. And you will also be receiving food recipes and ongoing support. Functional testing is also available if needed, and things like the Dutch test or gut health comprehensive assessment is usually what we consider for the weight management program. So if you would like to know more, if you have any questions about today, you could get in touch with us. This is my direct email here, but I'll share also towards the end our general email address, so you can get in touch either directly with me or with one of our secretaries if you have any questions about today, but also if you would like to know more about our weight management program. And we are now open for questions. We have some questions I know that people send in advance, but we can also receive any questions that you may have shared in the chat.
Thank you, Dr. Vera. That was brilliant and very informative. So we have one question here. Where can I buy a medical degree vitamin D and vitamin B complex? I have a deficit for both. I do not want to buy from high street shop as their quality is very poor.
Sorry, the question is about vitamin D and B12.
Vitamin D and vitamin B complex.